Shades of Solace. Chapter 1. The Weight of a Glance. The café on Willow Street smelled of burnt coffee and rain-soaked coats. Clara sat by the window, her fingers tracing the rim of a chipped porcelain cup, her eyes fixed on the drizzle outside. She wasn't here for the coffee. She was here for him. Elliot walked in at 3:17 p.m., same as every Thursday. His scarf hung loose, his hair damp from the autumn shower, and his smile, God, that smile, lit the room like a match in a dark cave. He didn't see her, not really. He never did. Clara had been coming to this cafe for months, timing her visits to his, memorizing the way he ordered a black coffee, no sugar, and sat by the counter with a book he barely read. She'd loved him since the day they met, 2 years ago, at a mutual friend's gallery opening. He'd been charming, all easy laughter and clever quips, his hazel eyes catching hers across the room. She thought it meant something. Didn't. To him, she was just Clara, the quiet artist who listened too much and spoke too little. Today, she wore her best sweater, the green one that made her eyes look like sea glass. She'd rehearsed what she'd say if he looked her way. "Hey, Elliot, fancy seeing you here. Reading anything good?" Casual, light, not desperate. But he didn't look. He never looked. Clara sipped her coffee, cold now, and sketched him in her mind. The curve of his jaw, the way his fingers tapped the counter when he was lost in thought. She'd filled half a sketchbook with him, portraits he'd never see. Her heart ached, a dull bruise that never quite healed. Chapter 2. The Art of Waiting. Clara's studio was a chaos of canvas and color, paint splattered on the floor like a Jackson Pollock fever dream. She worked late, her brush moving with a fury she couldn't name. Every stroke was for him, every shade a confession. Her latest piece was a storm of blues and grays, a figure half-formed in the center, his silhouette unmistakable to her alone. Her friend Mia stopped by one evening, eyeing the painting with a frown. "Clara, you've got to stop this. He's not worth it." "He doesn't know," Clara said, wiping paint from her hands. "I haven't told him." "And you think pining away in silence is going to make him notice?" Mia's voice was sharp, but her eyes were soft. "You're torturing yourself." Clara didn't answer. She couldn't explain the way hope clung to her like damp clothes, heavy but impossible to shed. She imagined telling him, the words spilling out in a rush. "Elliot, I've loved you for years. I see you, every part of you, and I can't stop." In her fantasies, he'd smile, pull her close, and say he'd felt the same all along. In reality, she knew he'd look at her with pity, and that would break her more than the silence. Chapter 3. The Nearness of Distance. Winter came, and the café grew quieter. Elliot started bringing someone new, a woman with red hair and a laugh that carried. Clara watched them from her corner, her sketchbook closed, her coffee untouched. The woman's name was Lila, and she leaned into him like she belonged there. Clara hated her, then hated herself for hating her. One day, Elliot caught her eye. He waved, a small gesture, and her heart leapt traitorously. She waved back, her smile too wide, too eager. He walked over, Lila trailing behind. "Hey, Clara, right?" he said, his voice warm but distant. "Haven't seen you in a while." "Yeah," she managed, her throat tight. "Just been busy." Lila smiled politely, her hand resting on Elliot's arm. Clara wanted to scream, to tell her she didn't know him, not like Clara did. She knew the way he hummed off-key when he thought no one was listening, the way he dog-eared pages instead of using a bookmark. But she said nothing because what could she say? Chapter 4. The Breaking Point. By spring, Clara stopped going to the café. She couldn't watch him with Lila, couldn't keep feeding the ache. She painted less, her colors muted, her canvases unfinished. Mia tried to drag her out, to bars, to galleries, but Clara felt like a ghost, present but not there. One night she wrote him a letter. It was 3 pages long, every word a piece of her heart. She wrote about the first time she saw him, about the sketches, about the way loving him had become her private religion. She didn't send it. She burned it in her sink, watching the flames curl the paper into ash. Chapter 5. solace in shadows. A year later, Clara had a show at a small gallery downtown. Her paintings were bolder now, raw and unapologetic. The critics called them haunting, visceral. She didn't tell them they were all about him. Elliot came to the opening alone. Clara saw him across the room, older somehow. His smile less bright. He stopped at her largest piece, a swirl of midnight blue and gold, a figure dissolving into light. He stared at it for a long time. "Clara, this is incredible," he said when he found her. "I had no idea you were this good." She wanted to tell him everything then, to spill the truth and let it ruin her. Instead she said, "Thanks. It means a lot." He nodded, lingered a moment, then left. She watched him go, her heart quieter now, not healed but learning to live with the scar. Clara sold every painting that night. She went home, opened a new sketchbook, and drew something new, a horizon empty and vast. For the first time it wasn't about him. It was about her. Chapter 6. The Echo of Absence. The months that followed were a slow unraveling. Clara threw herself into her work, her studio a sanctuary of chaos and creation. She painted landscapes now, wild, untamed things, cliffs and seas that screamed of freedom. Her art was no longer a cage for her longing but a door to something else, something she couldn't yet name. Mia noticed the change. "You're different," she said one night over cheap wine and takeout. "Lighter, maybe." Clara shrugged, but she felt it too. The weight of Elliot's absence was still there, a shadow that lingered in quiet moments, but it no longer defined her. She'd started running in the mornings, her breath sharp in the crisp air, her feet pounding the pavement like a heartbeat. She joined a pottery class on a whim, her hands shaping clay into imperfect bowls that made her laugh. She was living, not just surviving. Still, there were nights when she'd see something, a book he'd liked, a scarf like his, and the ache would return, softer now but never gone. She wondered about him, about Lila, about whether he was happy. She didn't check his social media, though. That was a line she'd drawn, a small act of mercy for herself. Chapter 7. The Unexpected Return. It was a humid July evening when Elliot walked back into her life. Clara was at the café, not for him, not anymore, but because she'd started to like their chai lattes. She was reading, her sketchbook tucked away, when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up, and there he was. He looked tired, his eyes shadowed, his posture less certain. No Lila this time. He saw her and hesitated, then walked over. "Clara," he said, his voice softer than she remembered. "Can I sit?" She nodded, her heart a traitor, thudding too loud. He sat across from her, his hands fidgeting with a napkin. "I saw your show last month," he said. It stayed with me." "Thanks," she said, cautious. She wasn't the same Clara who'd rehearsed lines for him, who'd hung on his every word. She was something else now, someone else. "I broke up with Lila," he blurted, then winced like he hadn't meant to say it. "It's been rough." "I'm sorry," Clara said, and she meant it, but not the way she once would have. She didn't feel the old rush of hope, the desperate need to fill the space Lila left. She just felt sad for him, the way you'd feel for a stranger with a broken heart. They talked for a while about nothing much, her art, his job, the city's endless construction. It was easy, but it wasn't the same. When he left, he hugged her, quick and awkward, and said, "We should catch up again." "Sure," she said, but she knew they wouldn't. Chapter 8. The Shape of Solace. By autumn, Clara's work was gaining traction. A gallery in New York wanted to feature her in a group show. She was nervous, but Mia pushed her to say yes. "This is your moment," she said. "Don't let it pass." Clara went, her paintings shipped ahead, her heart a mix of fear and excitement. The opening was a blur of faces and wine glasses, compliments she barely heard. She wore a black dress, her hair loose, and felt like she was stepping into a new skin. She met a photographer named Sam at the show, a quiet man with kind eyes who asked her about her process instead of her inspiration. They talked until the gallery closed, then wandered the city, sharing stories of art and failure and the strange beauty of starting over. He didn't feel like a replacement for Elliot, didn't feel like a cure. He just felt possible. Back home, Clara painted again, a new piece. Bright, bold, a horizon bursting with color. She thought of Elliot sometimes, but not with pain. He was a chapter, not the whole story. She was writing a new one now, with her own hands, her own heart. Chapter 9. The Fragile Present. Winter settled over the city like a heavy quilt, muffling the streets in snow. Clara's life had taken on a rhythm. Mornings of running, afternoons of painting, evenings of pottery or quiet dinners with Mia. Sam stayed in touch. His texts a gentle hum in her days. They'd met up a few times since New York, once for coffee, once for a walk through a frost-dusted park. He didn't push, didn't ask for more than she could give. She liked that about him. But the past had a way of creeping in. One evening, while sorting through old sketchbooks, Clara found the one she'd filled with Elliot. Page after page of his face, his hands, his silhouette against the café window. She sat on the floor, surrounded by ghosts, and let herself feel it. The love, the loss, the quiet triumph of moving on. She didn't burn the sketchbook. She closed it, tucked it away, and promised herself she'd never add to it again. Sam invited her to a photography exhibit in February. His own work on display. She went, nervous in a way she hadn't expected. His photos were stark, beautiful. Cityscapes at dawn, faces caught in fleeting moments of joy or sorrow. One image stopped her. A woman by a window, her face half lit, her eyes distant. It wasn't her, but it could have been, back when she lived for Elliot's glances. "You see something in that one," Sam said, appearing beside her. "It's familiar," she admitted, her voice soft. He nodded, not pressing. "I like capturing the in-between moments. The ones that feel like they could go either way." She looked at him then, really looked, and saw the way his eyes held hers. Not with expectation, but with curiosity. She wondered what it would be like to let him in, to let someone see her without the weight of her old longing. Chapter 10. The edge of something new. Spring brought a commission, a mural for a community center downtown. Clara spent weeks on it, sketching designs, mixing colors, climbing scaffolds to paint a sky that stretched across a brick wall. It was her biggest project yet, and it consumed her. She loved the physicality of it, the way her arms ached, the way the paint smelled like possibility. Sam came by one afternoon, bringing coffee and a shy smile. "You're in your element," he said, watching her work. She laughed, brushing hair from her face with a paint-streaked hand. "A messy element, maybe." "It suits you," he said, and there was something in his voice, quiet, steady, that made her pause. They started spending more time together. Walks turned into dinners, dinners into late-night conversations about art, dreams, the small hurts that shaped them. He told her about his childhood, about losing his brother young, about the camera that became his way of making sense of the world. She told him about her art, about the years she'd spent chasing a shadow. She didn't mention Elliot by name, but Sam seemed to understand. One night, under a sky bruised with stars, he kissed her. It was gentle, tentative, like he was asking a question. She kissed him back, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. It felt like a choice, not a surrender. Chapter 11. The Final Brushstroke. By summer, Clara's mural was finished. A vibrant sweep of color that made passers-by stop and stare. The community center threw a small unveiling, and Mia, Sam, and a handful of others came to celebrate. Clara stood in front of her work, her chest tight with pride and something else. Gratitude, maybe, for the life she was building. She saw Elliot one last time by chance, at a bookstore downtown. He was alone, browsing the poetry section, and for a moment, her heart stuttered. But it wasn't the same. She didn't feel the old pull, the need to be seen by him. She watched him for a moment, then turned away, picking up a book of her own. "Clara!" His voice caught her as she reached the checkout. She turned, smiling easily. "Hey, Elliot. You look happy," he said, almost surprised. "I am," she said, and it was true. They didn't say much else. He asked about her art. She asked about his work. It was polite, distant, like two people who'd once known each other but no longer did. When she left, she didn't look back. That night, Clara painted. Not a landscape, not a horizon, but a self-portrait. Her face in bold lines, her eyes bright, her colors unapologetic. It wasn't for anyone else. It was for her, a testament to the woman she'd become. And as she stepped back to look at it, she felt something settle inside her, a quiet, steady solace, like a horizon finally reached.